Welcome to Zen Mind Temple. Tonight, you will discover a powerful secret. For millennia, Zen wise men have found eternal peace amid chaos through their insight into the mind. Over the next 3 hours, 10 ancient stories will flow over your thoughts, like moonlight smoothing out the wrinkles. Adjust your pillow, let your body fully relax, and now take a deep breath with me. Inhale as you feel the air fill your chest, and exhale as you let all tension dissipate with the airflow. The air carries the faint scent of jasmine mixed with damp earth as you step into the courtyard of an ancient Zen temple. It is early morning, just as the first light of dawn paints the eastern sky in soft hues of pink and gold. The stone paths beneath your feet are cool, polished smooth by centuries of footsteps monks, travelers, seekers like yourself, who have come here in search of something unnameable, something that lies just beyond the reach of ordinary thought. To your left, a stand of bamboo sways gently in the morning breeze. Their slender trunks rise 30 feet high, their leaves rustling like whispered secrets. With each gust of wind, the bamboo bends but does not break, a living metaphor for resilience that you will soon come to understand more deeply. The shadow of their leaves stretches across the stone steps of the temple, moving slowly, almost imperceptibly. As the earth turns toward the sun, you notice an old monk sweeping those steps. His back is slightly stooped with age, but his movements are deliberate, almost dance-like in their precision. He holds a bamboo broom in hands that have clearly spent decades in such practice, calloused yet gentle, strong yet yielding. What strikes you most is his mindfulness, the state of being fully present in each moment without judgment. He does not rush, does not glance up at the sky, or check his progress. He simply sweeps, one slow, deliberate motion after another. Nearby, a young novice watches, his posture tense with impatience. He is perhaps 16, his shaven head gleaming in the morning light, his robes slightly askew. You can see the restlessness in his eyes, the way his fingers tap lightly against his thigh as he observes the old monk's methodical work. After several minutes, the novice can no longer contain himself. "Master," he says, his voice breaking. The stillness. "May I ask you something?" The old monk pauses, his broom mid-air. He turns slowly, his eyes crinkling at the corners with what might be amusement, or perhaps understanding. "You already have, young one," he replies, his voice like the creak of an old wooden door, weathered but warm. The novice blushes slightly, but presses on. "Why do you bother sweeping these steps at all? The bamboo leaves are just going to keep falling. As soon as you finish, more will come down. It seems pointless." You find yourself nodding slightly, silently agreeing with the young man's observation. There is something futile about sweeping when the wind continues to scatter leaves, about cleaning when nature persists in undoing your work. It is a metaphor for so much of life, our efforts to control, to maintain order, to keep things exactly as we want them, despite the universe's apparent determination to do otherwise. The old monk smiles, a slow, gentle smile that seems to contain within it the wisdom of ages. He sets his broom down carefully, leaning it against the stone wall, and gestures for the novice to come closer. "Sit with me," he says, patting the step beside him. The novice hesitates, then complies, lowering himself to the step with a faint sigh that betrays his continued impatience. You find yourself drawn closer as well, as if pulled by an invisible thread, eager to hear what the old monk will say. Look at the shadows. The monk says, pointing not to the leaves themselves, but to the patterns they make on the stone. What do you see? The novice squints, clearly confused by the question. I see shadows of bamboo leaves. They're moving. Yes, the monk replies, they are moving. Just as the leaves themselves are falling, just as the wind is blowing, just as the sun is rising. All these things are happening, and they will keep happening whether we sweep or not. He pauses, reaching out to brush a single leaf from the step beside him. He does not throw it away, simply holds it between his thumb and forefinger, turning it slowly so that the light catches its veins. This leaf, he says, is not dirt. It is not a problem to be solved. It is simply a leaf doing what leaves do. The novice frowns. But then why sweep at all? If it's all just going to happen again, why bother? Ah, the monk says, his eyes twinkling. You think the sweeping is about the steps? Is it not? You wonder silently. The old monk stands again, picking up his broom. He makes one slow, deliberate sweep, gathering a handful of leaves. Watch, he says. You watch as he sweeps, noticing now the way his entire body is engaged in the motion, the slight bend of his knees, the turn of his hips, the extension of his arms. It is not just his hands moving the broom, but his whole being. There is a grace to it, a kind of meditation in motion. When I sweep, he says, his voice calm and steady, I am not trying to make the steps perfect. I am not trying to defeat the wind or stop the leaves from falling. Those things are beyond my control, and to struggle against them is to create suffering for myself. He pauses, letting the words hang in the air like mist. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving and aversion, from wanting things to be other than they are, he continues, referencing the core Buddhist principle of dukkha and its origin in tanha. When I see a leaf on the step and think, this should not be here, I create suffering. When I rush to remove it, angry at the wind for bringing it, I multiply that suffering. The novice looks thoughtful now, his impatience temporarily forgotten. So the sweeping, it's not about the leaves? Not about the leaves, the monk confirms, sweeping again. It is about being present with the leaves. It is about moving with intention, with awareness, rather than reacting out of habit or frustration. When I sweep mindfully, each movement is a prayer, a moment of connection with the present. He sets the broom down again and turns to face the novice directly. You see, the steps will never be permanently clean. The leaves will keep falling. This is the nature of things impermanent, ever-changing, beyond our complete control. To demand otherwise is to live in a state of constant disappointment. This, you realize, is the heart of the matter, the secret that the old monk has spent a lifetime learning. So much of our anxiety, our stress, our unhappiness comes from this same demand that things should be different, that the leaves shouldn't fall, that the wind shouldn't blow, that life should follow our plans and expectations exactly. Modern psychology calls this phenomenon cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that arises when our beliefs or expectations conflict with reality. When we cling to our idea of how things should be, we create a state of tension in our minds. Our brains are wired to seek consistency, so when reality doesn't match our expectations, it triggers a stress response. Cortisol levels rise, our heart rate increases, and we enter a state of mild agitation, all because a few leaves have fallen where we don't want them. The Buddha understood this 2,500 years ago when he taught the first noble truth. That life is characterized by dukkha, unsatisfactoriness, suffering. This doesn't mean that life is constant pain, but rather that it is inherently impermanent. And our struggle against this impermanence is the source of much of our distress. We want things to stay the same or to be different from how they are. And when they inevitably change or remain stubbornly as they are, we suffer. The old monk demonstrates this truth through his sweeping. He doesn't fight against the leaves. He works with them. He doesn't demand that the wind stop blowing. He accepts it as part of the natural order. In doing so, he avoids the suffering that comes from resistance. Take a breath with me, the monk says to the novice, and you find yourself joining them. Inhale deeply through your nose, feeling the air fill your lungs, expanding your chest and abdomen. Hold it for a moment, then exhale slowly through your mouth, feeling the tension in your shoulders begin to melt away. Notice, the monk says, how the breath happens without effort. You don't need to force it. It comes and goes, like the wind, like the falling leaves. To struggle against it would be foolish, yes? The novice nods, his expression softening. So when I get frustrated about the leaves, it's like getting frustrated with my own breath? Pointless? Exactly, the monk says, smiling. And yet we do it, do we not? We get angry at traffic, annoyed by the weather, upset when plans change. All these things are as natural and unavoidable as the falling leaves. Our suffering comes not from the things themselves, but from our resistance to them. This is a profound insight, one that has been validated by modern neuroscience. When we encounter something that violates our expectations, a delayed train, a rainy day, a leaf on a freshly swept step, our amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing emotions, activates the fight or flight response. We experience a surge of adrenaline. Our attention narrows, and we prepare to either confront the threat or flee from it. The problem, of course, is that most of these threats are not actually dangerous. A leaf on a step, a traffic jam, a change in plans, these are inconveniences, not threats to our survival. But our brains, evolved to protect us from predators and other physical dangers, often can't tell the difference. They react to minor frustrations with the same physiological response as they would to a life-threatening situation. Over time, this chronic activation of the stress response takes a toll on our bodies and minds. It can lead to high blood pressure, weakened immune function, anxiety, and depression. It keeps us in a state of constant vigilance, unable to fully relax or be present in the moment. The practice of mindfulness, of being fully present with whatever is happening without judgment, interrupts this cycle. When we observe our thoughts and feelings about the falling leaves, or the traffic jam, or the change in plans, without getting caught up in them, we activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational thinking and self-awareness. This helps to calm the amygdala, reducing the stress response and allowing us to respond to the situation with greater clarity and equanimity. The old monk's sweeping is a form of moving meditation, a way to practice this mindfulness in action. He is fully present with each movement, each breath, each leaf. He doesn't get ahead of himself by worrying about the leaves that will fall after he finishes. He doesn't dwell on the leaves he has already swept away. He is simply here, now, with the task at hand. Would you like to try? The monk asks the novice, offering him the broom. The young man hesitates, then takes it. gripping it awkwardly at first. He makes a few clumsy sweeps, clearly uncomfortable with the slow pace. Slower, the monk advises. Feel the weight of the broom in your hands. Notice how your feet connect with the ground. Breathe. The novice slows down, his movements becoming more deliberate. You can see the tension in his shoulders, easing as he focuses on the task itself rather than the end result. Good, the monk says softly. Now, as you sweep, notice when your mind wanders. Notice when you start thinking about how much is left to do, or when you get frustrated by a new leaf falling. When that happens, just return your attention to the sensation of the broom moving, to the sound of the leaves rustling, to your breath. This is the essence of mindfulness practice. Not emptying the mind, but rather noticing when it has wandered and gently bringing it back. It is a simple practice, but not an easy one. Our minds are like monkeys, jumping from thought to thought, always seeking something new, something more. But with practice, we can train them to stay more present, more grounded in the here and now dot as you watch the novice sweep. You become aware of your own breathing, of the sensation of air entering and leaving your body. You notice the sounds around you, the rustle of bamboo leaves, the distant chirping of birds, the soft scrape of the broom against stone. You feel the cool morning air on your skin, the warmth of the sun as it rises higher in the sky. In this moment, there is no anxiety about the past or the future. There is only this, the sound of a broom sweeping, the rustle of leaves, the rhythm of breath. This is the peace that the old monk has found through a lifetime of practice. The peace that comes not from controlling the world around us, but from accepting it as it is. The Buddha summed this up in the Dhammapada when he said, "Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without." This simple truth is at the heart of all Buddhist practice, and it is what the old monk is teaching through his sweeping. True peace is not found in a world without leaves, without wind, without change. It is found in our ability to be with whatever arises, without resistance, without judgment, without the need for things to be different. This evening, as you prepare for sleep, you can practice this same awareness. You don't need a broom or a stone courtyard, just your breath and your attention. Begin by finding a comfortable position in bed, allowing your body to be fully supported by the mattress and pillows. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, feeling your body relax more deeply with each exhale. Now, bring your attention to the sensations of your body against the bed. Notice the points of contact, the back of your head against the pillow, your shoulders against the mattress, your legs and feet resting heavily. Notice the temperature of your skin, the texture of your sheets against your body. As you breathe naturally, notice the thoughts that arise in your mind. They might be worries about tomorrow, regrets about yesterday, plans, memories, or random musings. These thoughts are like the falling leaves, natural, inevitable, neither good nor bad. When you notice a thought, simply acknowledge it, as the old monk acknowledged the falling leaves. You might say silently to yourself, thinking then. Gently return your attention to the sensation of your breath or the feeling of your body against the bed. Do not judge yourself when your mind wanders. This is what minds do, just as leaves fall and wind blows. Each time you notice that your attention has drifted and gently bring it back, you are practicing the same mindfulness as the old monk sweeping the steps. As you continue this practice, you may notice that your thoughts begin to slow down, like leaves settling as the wind dies down. You may feel a sense of calm spreading through your body, a release of tension that you didn't even realize you were holding. Remember the old monk's wisdom. This practice is not about emptying your mind or stopping your thoughts any more than his sweeping was about making the steps permanently leaf-free. It is about being present with whatever arises, without resistance, without judgment. As you drift towards sleep, carry with you the image of the bamboo leaves falling, of the old monk sweeping slowly, deliberately, with full presence. Remember that peace is not found in a world without disturbances, but in a mind that can remain calm amidst them. Take one more deep breath now, inhaling peace, exhaling any remaining tension. Allow yourself to sink deeper into relaxation, knowing that you can return to this place of calm whenever you need to, simply by bringing your attention back to the present moment. Just as the bamboo bends but does not break in the wind, just as the old monk meets each falling leaf with equanimity, so too can you meet the challenges of life with grace and presence. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Allow these words to settle in your mind as you continue to breathe, slowly, deeply, peacefully. As the morning sun climbs higher in the sky, casting longer shadows across the temple courtyard, you feel a gentle pull to move onward. The sound of flowing water draws you toward the eastern edge of the temple grounds, where a small pond shimmers. Like a sheet of liquid silver, lotus leaves float serenely on its surface, their edges beaded with dew that catches the sunlight and sparkles like scattered diamonds dot by the pond. You notice a group of 5 blind men, their hands outstretched. As they move cautiously toward the water's edge, they are led by a young monk who guides them gently, describing the scene around them in soft, descriptive tones. Feel the coolness of the air here, he says, and listen to the water lapping against the stones. Above us, the moon still lingers faintly in the sky, though the sun is rising. And there, in the water, you can see its reflection, a perfect circle of light. The blind men lean forward, their faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and concentration. One by one, they reach out to touch the water, their fingers breaking the surface and sending ripples across the pond, shattering the moon's reflection into 1,000 shimmering fragments. What do you feel? The young monk asks. The first man, his hands still submerged, speaks with certainty. The moon is soft and cool, like a piece of silk floating on water. It moves and bends beneath my touch. The second man, who has only dipped his fingertips in, shakes his head. No, you're mistaken. The moon is thin and fragile, like a leaf on the surface. It breaks apart when you touch it. The third man, who splashed the water more vigorously, disagrees. Foolishness. The moon is nothing but a collection of tiny droplets, flying apart when disturbed. It has no form at all. The fourth man, who reached deeper into the water, where the reflection never quite formed, scoffs. You're all wrong. There is no moon in the water. It is a trick, an illusion. The water is empty. The fifth man, who stood back, listening to the others, finally speaks. I think the moon is like a stone dropped in a pond round and solid, but when you try to grasp it, it disappears. Each man is convinced of his own truth, each certain that his limited experience captures the full reality of what lies before him. You can hear the tension in their voices as they argue, each growing more frustrated with the other's refusal to see things as they clearly are. Gentlemen, says a voice behind you, and you turn to see the old monk from the courtyard, his broom now resting beside him, replaced by a small wooden bucket which he dips into the pond. You are all describing different things, but none of you are describing the moon. The blind man falls silent, turning toward the sound of his voice. "But Master," the first man says, "we have felt it with our own hands. How can we be mistaken?" The old monk sets his bucket down, the water inside rippling gently, containing its own tiny reflection of the sky. You have felt the water, my friends. You have felt the ripples, the coolness, the movement. But the moon is not in the water. The moon is in the sky, beyond your reach, beyond your touch. What you feel in the water is only a reflection, a small, imperfect image of something much larger. He pauses, allowing his words to settle. Each of you experienced a different part of the water's surface, at a different moment, with different intentions. The moon's reflection changed, with each touch, each splash, each ripple. So you each describe something real, your own experience of the water, but you mistake that experience for the moon itself. This, you realize, is a profound metaphor for the human condition. Like the blind men, we each experience the world through our own limited senses, our own unique perspectives, our own filters of past experiences, beliefs, and expectations. We mistake our personal experience of reality for reality itself, then grow frustrated when others do not see things the same way. The Buddha taught that this fundamental misunderstanding, this confusion of our perception with reality, is the root of much suffering. He called this ignorance, not in the sense of stupidity, but in the sense of not seeing things as they truly are. We see the world through the lens of our own ego, our own self, and this distorts our understanding of reality. Modern psychology calls this egocentrism, the inability to separate one's own perspective from that of others. Research has shown that even adults, despite our belief in our own objectivity, are fundamentally egocentric. We overestimate how much others share our opinions and perspectives, and we struggle to understand how someone else could see the same situation differently. This egocentrism activates what psychologists call the default mode network of brain regions that is active when we are not focused on the external world, but rather on ourselves, our thoughts, our feelings, our memories, our sense of self. This network is essential for self-awareness, but when it dominates our thinking, it can lead us to mistake our subjective experience for objective reality. The result is conflict, frustration, and suffering. Like the blind men arguing about the nature of the moon, we argue with others who see the world differently, convinced that we alone have a monopoly on the truth. We become attached to our own perspectives, defending them fiercely, even when they cause us pain. The old monk understands this deeply. When you believe that your experience is the only true experience, he says to the blind men, you close yourself off to the vastness of what is. You create a small prison of your own making, then wonder why you feel confined. He dips a hand into the pond, gently, without splashing, and watches as the moon's reflection reforms, whole again, on the surface. Look at the water now, he says. It is calm. The reflection is clear, but it is still just a reflection. The moon remains in the sky, whether we see its reflection or not, whether we believe in it or not. This is the nature of reality. The Buddha taught it exists independently of our perception of it. Our thoughts, feelings, and interpretations are like the ripples on the pond. They may distort our view of reality, but they do not change reality itself. The problem arises when we become so attached to our own ripples, our own distortions, that we cannot see beyond them. We create a story about who we are, about how the world works, and we cling to that story, even when it causes us suffering. We become like the blind men, arguing about the nature of something we cannot fully perceive, refusing to acknowledge the limitations of our own understanding. The old monk gestures to the bucket of water he collected, now still, its surface reflecting a small patch of sky. This bucket contains the same water as the pond, he says, but it can only reflect a small part of the sky. Your minds are like this bucket. They can hold only a small part of reality, a limited reflection. To think that your bucket contains the entire sky is to misunderstand both the bucket and the sky. This understanding is the beginning of wisdom. It is the recognition that our perspective is always partial, always limited, always filtered through the lens of our own self. When we can acknowledge this, we open ourselves to the possibility of seeing things differently, of learning from others, of growing beyond our current understanding. The fifth blind man, who had stood back earlier, speaks again. Master, if our experience is so limited, how can we ever know the truth? The old monk smiles. You can know the truth by recognizing its absence in your limited understanding. You can know it by listening more than speaking, by being curious more than certain, by accepting that what you know is always less than what there is to know. He continues, the Buddha taught that the self is like a flame passed from candle to candle, changing, evolving, never the same, yet connected. Your experience of the world is unique, but it is not separate from the experiences of others. You are all touching different parts of the same water, all describing different aspects of the same moon. This interconnectedness is a fundamental principle of Buddhist philosophy, and it has been validated by modern science, which shows that our brains are wired for empathy, for understanding the perspectives of others. Mirror neurons in our brains fire not only when we perform an action, but also when we observe someone else performing it, allowing us to feel what they feel, to see through their eyes. Yet our default mode network often overrides this capacity, pulling us back into our own perspective, our own concerns, our own self. We become so focused on our own experience that we lose touch with the true interconnectedness of all things. The old monk invites the blind men to sit with him by the pond. Close your eyes, he says, and let go of your ideas about the moon. Let go of your need to be right, to be certain. Just listen to the water. Feel the air on your skin. Breathe. You close your eyes too, joining them in this simple practice. Inhale deeply, feeling the cool air fill your lungs, carrying the scent of water and earth. Exhale slowly, releasing any tension, any need to understand, any attachment to your own perspective. Notice, the old monk says, his voice soft, how the world exists beyond your thoughts about it. The water flows, the wind blows, the sun rises all without your understanding, without your permission. They simply are. This is the essence of mindfulness, to experience the world as it is, without the filter of our thoughts and judgments. It is to see the moon in the sky, not just the reflection in the water. It is to recognize that our thoughts are like ripples on the surface, temporary, changing, not the water itself. When we can rest in this awareness, we free ourselves from the suffering that comes from clinging to our own limited perspectives. We no longer need to argue with the blind men about the nature of the moon, because we understand that their arguments arise from the same fundamental misunderstanding that once limited our own vision. The old monk asks the blind men to share their experiences again, but this time without arguing, without trying to convince each other. Simply share what you felt, he says, without claiming it as the whole truth. You listen as they speak, their voices now softer, more curious. The first man describes the coolness of the water, the second the way the reflection broke. Apart, the third the droplets flying into the air, the fourth the emptiness beneath the surface, the fifth the sense of something solid disappearing. As they speak, you notice how their descriptions, when taken together, create a more complete picture of what happened, even if none of them alone captures the whole truth. This is the power of perspective taking, the ability to hold multiple viewpoints in mind without judgment. Modern psychology has shown that this ability is strongly correlated with emotional intelligence, empathy, and overall well-being. When we can step outside of our own egocentric perspective and consider the viewpoints of others, we reduce conflict, increase our sense of connection with others, and experience less stress and anxiety. The Buddha understood this when he taught the importance of maitruk and karunyu, qualities that arise naturally when we recognize that others are just as caught in their own limited perspectives as we are, just as deserving of understanding and kindness. As the morning sun climbs higher, the moon fades from the sky, its reflection no longer visible in the pond. The blind men, now sitting quietly together, seem more at peace, their earlier arguments forgotten. Tonight, the old monk says, when the moon rises again, look up at it if you can. And remember, the moon is always there, even when you cannot see it, even when your limited senses cannot grasp it. So too is the truth, always present, waiting to be seen beyond the ripples of your own thoughts. He turns to you, his eyes warm with understanding. You too see the world through your own eyes, through your own experiences. Remember that what you see is not all there is. There is always more, always another perspective, always a larger truth beyond your current understanding. This evening, as you prepare to continue your journey toward peace and relaxation, you can practice this awareness. You can learn to recognize when you are like the blind men mistaking your own limited experience for the whole truth. Begin by finding a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths, allowing your body to relax. With each exhale, bring to mind a recent situation where you disagreed with someone, where you felt certain that you were right and they were wrong. It might be a small disagreement, a difference of opinion about a movie, a restaurant, a minor decision, or something more significant. As you think about this situation, notice how certain you felt about your own perspective. Notice the emotions that arise: frustration, anger, perhaps even a sense of superiority. These emotions are natural, but they arise from the same place as the blind men's arguments, from the belief that your limited perspective captures the whole truth. Now, take a deep breath and imagine stepping into the other person's shoes. What might they have experienced in that situation? What past experiences, beliefs, or values might shape their perspective? You don't need to agree with them, just to acknowledge that their perspective is valid for them, based on their own unique experiences. Notice how this act of perspective taking changes your emotional response. You might feel your frustration soften, your anger diminish, replaced by a sense of curiosity or even compassion. Now, imagine a third perspective, someone who observed the situation without being directly involved. What would they see that neither you nor the other person noticed? What larger context might they bring to the situation that you were unable to see? Finally, bring your attention back to your own experience, but with a new awareness. Your perspective is real, valid, and important, but it is not the only perspective. Like the blind men, you are describing your own experience of the water, not the moon itself. As you drift towards sleep, carry with you the image of the pond, its surface calm, reflecting the moon perfectly, then rippling with each touch, each splash, each disturbance. Your mind is like that pond, sometimes calm, sometimes disturbed, always reflecting a limited image of something much larger. Remember that peace comes not from being right, not from convincing others to see things your way, but from recognizing the limitations of your own perspective. It comes from being curious rather than certain, from listening rather than arguing, from understanding that the moon is always larger than any reflection of it. Take a deep breath now, inhaling this awareness, exhaling any remaining attachment. To being right. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. As you continue to breathe, allow yourself to rest in the vastness of what you do not know, in the mystery of what lies beyond your current understanding. In this space of openness, of curiosity, of acceptance, you will find a deeper peace than any certainty could ever provide. The water settles, the ripples fade, and the reflection of the moon reappears whole, perfect, complete. So too can your mind settle, the thoughts fade, and the truth of who you are reappear connected to all things, beyond the limitations of your small, separate self. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The morning sun has climbed high enough to warm the stones beneath your feet as you leave the pond behind. The sound of a wooden bell echoes through the temple grounds, its deep, resonant tone vibrating in your chest. Following the sound, you find yourself in a small tea house nestled between two ancient pine trees, their gnarled branches reaching toward the sky like outstretched hands. The tea house is simple, its walls made of bamboo and rice paper, its roof of dark, weathered tiles. Inside, the air is rich with the earthy aroma of tea leaves, mingled with the scent of sandalwood from a small incense stick burning in the corner. Sunlight filters through the paper walls, casting soft, diffused light across the room. Seated at a low wooden table is a man dressed in the robes of a scholar-fine silk, though slightly travel-worn, his hair tied back in a neat queue, his face marked by the furrows of deep thought. Across from him sits the old monk, his posture relaxed, his hands resting gently on the table. Between them are two cups, a small clay teapot, and a bowl of freshly picked tea leaves. You slip quietly into the room, finding a corner to sit, and listen as the scholar speaks, his voice crisp and precise, filled with the confidence of one who has spent years studying texts and debating ideas. "Master," he says, "I have traveled many days to speak with you. I have studied the sacred texts, memorized the sutras, debated with the finest minds in the capital. I wish to understand the essence of Zen." The old monk nods, his expression neutral. "That is a worthy pursuit," he says. "Shall we drink tea while we speak?" The scholar nods, his eyes already wandering to the books stacked beside the monk's seat, scanning the titles with a practiced eye. The old monk lifts the teapot, which is already filled with hot water, and begins to pour. He fills the scholar's cup to the brim and continues pouring until hot water overflows onto the table, spilling into the scholar's lap. "Hey!" the scholar exclaims, leaping to his feet, his face flushed with surprise and annoyance. "What are you doing?" The cup is full. It can't hold any more tea. The old monk stops pouring, setting the teapot down gently. He looks up at the scholar, his eyes calm and steady. "Exactly," he says. "Your mind is like this cup already full of your own knowledge, your own opinions, your own ideas. How can I teach you anything when there is no room for new understanding?" The scholar freezes, his annoyance fading as the monk's words sink in. He looks down at the spilled tea, then back at the old monk, his expression softening into something like recognition. You feel a similar recognition stir within you. How often have you approached a new idea, a new experience, with your mind already full, already judging, comparing, categorizing, rather than simply receiving? How often have you listened to others not to understand, but to find flaws in their arguments, to confirm your own beliefs? The Buddha taught that this is the nature of the untrained mind, always grasping, always holding on to what it knows, afraid to let go, afraid to be empty. He called this updana, the attachment to our thoughts, our ideas, our sense of self. This clinging creates a prison of the mind, a barrier to true understanding. Modern psychology refers to this as cognitive rigidity, the inability or unwillingness to change one's beliefs or behavior in response to new information. It is closely linked to what psychologists call confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs and ignore or dismiss information that contradicts them. This rigidity activates the same stress response in the brain, as we saw with the blind men and their arguments about the moon. When we encounter information that challenges our existing beliefs, our amygdala triggers a threat response. We feel defensive, anxious, sometimes even angry. Our default mode network kicks into high gear, reinforcing our sense of self as someone who is right, who knows, who understands. The result is what we might call mental internal friction, the psychological equivalent of a machine working against itself. Our minds are constantly processing, judging, comparing, resisting, creating a state of low-level tension that drains our energy, clouds our judgment, and prevents us from experiencing peace. The old monk understands this deeply. He gestures for the scholar to sit down again and takes a cloth and begins to wipe up the spilled tea. To learn, he says, we must first unlearn. To receive, we must first empty ourselves. This is the first step on the path of understanding. He takes a fresh cup, placing it in front of the scholar, then fills it halfway with tea. The cup is like your mind, he says. When it is half full, there is room for more. There is space for new ideas to mix with old ones, for understanding to grow and evolve. The scholar nods, his posture more relaxed now. I see, he says. You are saying that my knowledge is not a problem, but my attachment to it is. That I must be willing to set it aside, even temporarily, to make room for something new. Exactly, the old monk says, smiling. The Buddha taught that all phenomena are impermanent, constantly changing, interconnected. To cling to a fixed idea of truth is like trying to catch a river in a bucket. You can hold a little of it, but you miss the vast, flowing whole. He pours a little more tea into the scholar's cup. Knowledge is useful, but it is not wisdom. Knowledge is like a map. It can guide you, but it is not the territory. To confuse the map with the territory is to lose your way. This distinction between knowledge and wisdom is central to Zen philosophy. Knowledge is information, facts, ideas, things we can learn from books or teachers. Wisdom is the ability to apply that knowledge, to see beyond it, to recognize its limitations. Wisdom arises not from filling the mind, but from emptying it, from creating space for direct experience, for seeing things as they are, not as our ideas say they should be. Modern neuroscience supports this idea. Studies have shown that when we are in a state of beginner's mind, open, curious, free from preconceptions, our brains activate different neural networks than when we are in a state of certainty. The prefrontal cortex, associated with creativity and flexible thinking, becomes more active, while the default mode network, associated with rigid thinking and self-referential processing, becomes less active. This shift in brain activities, associated with lower stress levels, greater creativity, and a deeper sense of connection with the present moment. It is the neural basis for the sense of clarity and peace that comes from letting go of our attachment to being right or knowing. The scholar leans forward, his earlier arrogance replaced by genuine curiosity. How do I empty my mind? How do I let go of my attachment to my own knowledge? The old monk picks up a single tea leaf, holding it up to the light. This leaf, he says, is perfect as it is. It does not need to prove anything, to be anything other than what it is. It does not cling to its identity as a tea leaf. It simply is, and when the time comes, it will change, becoming part of the tea, then part of the water, then part of the air. It has no fixed self, no need to hold on. He drops the leaf into the teapot. Your mind can be like this leaf, flexible, open, changing, but you must stop clinging to your ideas of who you are, what you know, what is true. You must be willing to be empty, to be uncertain, to not know. This is the practice of beginner's mind in Zen, a concept that refers to having an attitude of openness, eagerness, and lack of preconceptions when studying a subject, even when studying at an advanced level, just as a beginner would. The old monk pours tea for himself, taking a slow sip, savoring the flavor. Notice how the tea tastes, he says. Not as you think it should taste, not compared to other teas you have drunk, but just as it is in this moment. The scholar closes his eyes, taking a sip, his face softening as he focuses on the experience. The warmth of the cup in his hands, the aroma rising to his nostrils, the complex flavors on his tongue, earth, grass, a hint of sweetness, a subtle bitterness. Now, the old monk says, you are drinking tea, not thinking about tea, not comparing tea, not analyzing tea, just drinking tea. This is mindfulness. This is emptying the mind of everything but the present moment. You close your eyes, imagining the taste of tea, perhaps a tea, well, or simply the idea of tea. Notice how your mind wants to categorize it, to compare it to other tastes, to judge it as good or bad. Then, gently, let those thoughts go and simply imagine the sensation of drinking without the overlay of thought. This is the practice of emptying the mind, not by force, not by suppressing thoughts, but by recognizing them as separate from the experience itself and choosing to return to the direct sensation of the present moment. The scholar opens his eyes, a look of wonder on his face. I have drunk tea many times, he says, but I do not think I have ever truly tasted it before. The old monk smiles. That is the nature of Zen. It is not something to be understood with the mind, but to be experienced directly with an open heart and an empty cup. He refills both their cups, this time not spilling a drop. The path of understanding is not about accumulating more knowledge, he says, but about letting go of what we think we know again and again. It is a lifetime of emptying the cup so that it may be refilled with the fresh, living water of direct experience. This process of letting go is essential for mental well-being. When we cling to our thoughts, our beliefs, our identities, we create a sense of rigidity that makes it difficult to adapt to change, to cope with uncertainty, to connect with others. We become trapped in a cycle of mental internal friction, expending energy on maintaining our fixed ideas rather than engaging with the living, breathing present moment. By practicing emptying the cup, by cultivating beginner's mind, we reduce this friction. We become more flexible, more resilient, more open to the possibilities that each moment contains. We discover that peace is not found in being certain, in knowing all the answers, but in being comfortable with not knowing, with the vast mystery of existence. The scholar sits quietly for a moment, his eyes closed, as if absorbing the monk's words. When he opens them, there is a new softness in his gaze, a willingness to be vulnerable, to not have all the answers. "Thank you," he says simply. "I think I understand, at least a little." The old monk nods. Understanding is like the moon in the water. You can see it, but you cannot grasp it. The more you try to hold on to it, the more it slips away. Best to simply let it be and drink your tea. As the morning turns to afternoon, you sit quietly in the tea house, listening as the scholar asks questions, not to prove his knowledge, but to learn, and the old monk answers, not with dogma, but with stories and questions of his own. You notice how the energy in the room has shifted from tension to ease, from competition to collaboration, from the rigidity of certainty to the fluidity of curiosity. Eventually, the scholar rises to leave, bowing deeply to the old monk. "I will return," he says, with an empty cup. The old monk bows in return. The path awaits. After the scholar has gone, the old monk turns to you, his eyes twinkling. "You have been listening," he says, not as a question, but a statement. You nod, feeling a sense of connection with this wise man who understands the value of silence, of listening, of emptying. "Your mind is like that cup," he says, gesturing to the now empty teacups. "It becomes full of thoughts, of worries, of plans, of judgments, but it does not have to stay that way. You can choose to empty it again and again, making space for peace, for clarity, for the present moment. This evening, as you continue your journey toward deep relaxation, you can practice this art of emptying. You can learn to recognize when your mind is full to overflowing, and gently, without judgment, make space for something new. Begin by finding a comfortable position, either sitting or lying down, and take 3 deep breaths, feeling your body. Relax with each exhale. Bring to mind a thought or belief that you hold strongly, a conviction, an opinion, a way of seeing the world. It might be something small, like a preference for a certain type of music, or something larger, like a belief about how the world works. Notice how this thought feels in your mind, as if it has weight, substance, solidity. Notice how you identify with it how it feels like part of who you are. Now, imagine taking this thought and placing it gently outside of yourself, on a shelf, in a box, on a leaf floating down a stream. You are not rejecting it, not judging it, just setting it aside for a moment. Notice how your mind feels with this thought set aside. Is there a sense of lightness, of spaciousness, even a small sense of freedom from the weight of certainty? Now ask yourself, what would it be like to approach this thought with beginner's mind, with curiosity, with openness, without the need to defend it or prove it? What might I learn if I were willing to see it as a possibility rather than a fact? You don't need to change your mind or abandon your beliefs. Simply experiencing the space around them, the possibility of seeing them differently, is enough. This is the practice of emptying the cup, not by throwing away what is inside, but by recognizing that there is more to the world than what we can hold. As you continue to breathe, imagine your mind as a cup. Notice what it is filled with right now. Worries about tomorrow, regrets about yesterday, plans, memories, judgments. Now, imagine tilting the cup, allowing these thoughts to pour out onto the ground, into the air, into the vastness of space. They are not lost, not destroyed, just released from the confinement of your mind. Notice the empty space that remains, the quiet, the stillness, the possibility. This is the natural state of the mind before it becomes filled with thoughts. This is the space where peace resides. You can return to this space anytime, simply by noticing that your mind is full and choosing to empty it through breath, through awareness, through the simple recognition that thoughts are not who you are, and they do not have to define your experience. As you drift toward sleep, carry with you the image of the empty cup, waiting to be filled. Your mind is like this cup, capable of holding much, but at its most receptive, its most peaceful, when it is empty. Remember that peace comes not from filling your mind with answers, but from making space for questions. Not from clinging to what you know, but from being open to what you don't. Take a deep breath now, inhaling the spaciousness of not knowing, exhaling the need to be certain. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. As you continue to breathe, allow yourself to rest in the empty space of your mind, the quiet, the stillness, the vastness that exists beyond thought. In this space, you are not your knowledge, not your beliefs, not your opinions. You are simply awareness, open and receptive, like an empty cup awaiting tea. The tea will come and it will go. Thoughts will arise and they will pass. But the empty space remains, always available, always peaceful, always yours. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The afternoon sun casts long shadows across the temple grounds as you leave the tea house behind. The air has grown warmer, carrying with it the scent of jasmine from a nearby garden. Following a stone path that winds between flowering bushes, you hear the sound of voices raised in debate, growing louder as you approach the main hall. The hall is a large, open structure with wooden beams supporting a high, curved roof. Inside, a dozen monks sit on tatami mats arranged in a circle, their voices echoing off the wooden walls. At the center of the circle hangs a large silk banner called a fukin. In Zen tradition, its red fabric rippling gently in the breeze that flows through the open doors. You're mistaken. One monk exclaims, his voice sharp with frustration. It is the wind that moves the banner. Can't you see? The wind blows and the banner moves. It's as simple as that. Another monk shakes his head vigorously, his eyes narrowing. Foolishness. The wind is invisible, intangible. How can something that cannot be seen move something that can? It is clearly the banner itself that moves. A wind is nothing but an idea. A third monk interjects, his tone more measured, but no less certain. Both of you are wrong. The wind exists and the banner exists, but neither moves without the other. They are interconnected, dependent on each other for movement. It is the relationship between them that causes the motion. The debate continues, each monk defending his position with increasing intensity. You can see the tension in their bodies, clenched fists, furrowed brows, rigid postures as they become more invested in proving themselves right and others wrong. This scene is familiar, not just from the earlier encounters with the blind men and the scholar, but from your own life. How often have you found yourself in similar debates about politics, about relationships, about the right way to do things, becoming more entrenched in your position as the conversation heats up? How often have you felt your heart rate increase, your breathing grow shallow as you defend your point of view? As the monks argue, a figure enters the hall silently. It is Huineng, a legendary Zen master known for his wisdom and humility, though. At this point in his life, he is still a relatively unknown monk who works in the temple kitchen. He stands quietly in the back, listening to the debate with a calm expression, his hands resting gently at his sides. After a few minutes, when the argument shows no signs of abating, Huineng speaks, his voice soft but clear enough to cut through the din. It is not the wind that moves, nor the banner that moves, he says. It is your mind that moves. The hall falls silent. The monks turn toward him, their expressions a mix of surprise, confusion, and curiosity. Even you feel a jolt of recognition, as if a light has been turned on in a dark room. It is your mind that moves. Huineng repeats, his eyes scanning the circle of monks. When your mind is at peace, the wind and the banner are simply as they are. When your mind is restless, you create division, conflict, suffering. This statement cuts to the heart of Zen philosophy and to the nature of human psychology. The monks are arguing about external phenomena, the wind, the banner, as if their movement is independent of the observer. But Huineng points out that our experience of the world is not objective. It is filtered through the lens of our minds. The Buddha taught this 2,500 years ago when he described the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness that make up our experience of reality. None of these aggregates exist independently. They are interconnected and interdependent, constantly changing in response to each other. Our perception of the world is not a direct reflection of reality, but a construction of the mind. Modern neuroscience confirms this understanding. Our brains do not passively receive information from the world. They actively construct it. Sensory input is processed through a complex network of neurons, filtered through past experiences, beliefs, and expectations before being assembled into a coherent reality. This reality is highly subjective too. People can witness the same event and have completely different experiences of it, based on their unique neural pathways. When the monks see the banner moving, they are not just observing a physical phenomenon. They are interpreting it through their mental models, their conceptual frameworks, their need to categorize and explain. Their arguments arise not from the banner, or the wind themselves, but from the activity of their own minds, from their attachment to particular interpretations. There need to be right dot. This mental activity activates the default mode network in the brain, which we've discussed earlier. This network is responsible for self-referential thinking, for constructing narratives about ourselves and the world. When it becomes overactive, as it does during heated debates or moments of stress, it creates a sense of separation between self and other, between right and wrong, between my truth and your truth. The result is emotional volatility. Our moods swing from frustration to anger to defensiveness as we react to the stories our minds are telling us about the world. We feel ourselves becoming moved by external events as if we are passive victims of circumstances, when in reality, our emotional responses are generated from within. Huineng understands this deeply. He steps forward, approaching the banner, which continues to ripple in the breeze. Look at the banner, he says. It moves, yes, but does it struggle? Does it argue? Does it become angry at the wind? The monks shake their heads, their expressions softening as they begin to grasp his meaning. The wind blows, Huineng continues. The banner moves. This is the natural order of things, neither good nor bad, neither right nor wrong. It is only when we attach our thoughts, our judgments, our opinions to these phenomena that we create suffering. This is a profound insight. Suffering arises not from what happens, but from how we think about what happens. The wind and the banner are neutral. They have no inherent meaning. We invest with them meaning through our thoughts, and it is these meanings that trigger our emotional responses. Modern psychology calls this the cognitive triad, the way we think about ourselves, others, and the future. Our interpretations of events, shaped by this triad, determine our emotional states. For example, if we interpret the banner's movement as evidence that we are right and others are wrong, we might feel pride or satisfaction. If we interpret someone else's disagreement as a personal attack, we might feel anger or hurt. These interpretations are often automatic, occurring outside of conscious awareness. They are shaped by our past experiences, our core beliefs, our cultural conditioning, but they are not facts. They are mental constructions, and we have the power to change them. Huineng gestures to the monks to sit down, and they comply, their posture now more relaxed, more open. To calm the mind, he says, we must first recognize that the mind is the source of its own disturbance. The wind will continue to blow, the banner will continue to move, and the world will continue to unfold in ways we cannot always predict or control. Our peace does not depend on changing these external circumstances, but on changing our relationship to them. He sits down among the monks, crossing his legs comfortably. When you see the banner moving, notice the thoughts that arise. It is the wind that moves. No, it is the banner. They are both wrong. These thoughts are like waves. On the surface of a lake, they arise, they fall. They have no permanent existence. You do not need to push them away, nor do you need to cling to them. Just observe them and let them pass. This is the practice of mindfulness, of observing our thoughts and feelings without becoming identified with them, without being swept away by them. When we can do this, we create a space between ourselves and our thoughts, a space where we can choose how to respond, rather than reacting automatically. Neuroscientific research has shown that this practice activates the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for executive functions like decision-making, impulse control, and emotional regulation. It also reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's fear center, leading to a decrease in stress hormones like cortisol. The result is a greater sense of emotional balance, a greater ability to remain calm in the face of life's winds. We begin to see that our emotional responses are not determined by external events, but by our internal interpretations, and that we have the power to change these interpretations. One of the monks, a young man with a thoughtful expression, raises his hand. "Master," he says, "how do we stop our minds from moving? How do we find peace amid the chaos of thoughts?" Huineng smiles gently. "The mind is like a monkey swinging from branch to branch, never still. You cannot stop it by force, any more than you can stop the wind by clamping your hands around it. Instead, you learn to observe the monkey without being pulled into its antics. You learn to rest in the awareness that witnesses the thoughts, rather than being the thoughts themselves." He points to the banner. The banner moves, but the pole it hangs from remains still. Your essential nature is like that pole, unchanging, unshakable, no matter how much your thoughts and emotions move around it. This essential nature is what Zen practitioners refer to as Buddha nature, the innate potential for wisdom and compassion that exists within all beings. It is the part of us that is beyond thought, beyond emotion, beyond the fluctuations of the mind. It is the stillness beneath the movement, the peace beneath the chaos. To connect with this nature, we don't need to empty our minds of thoughts. That is impossible, just as it is impossible to stop the wind. Instead, we need to develop the capacity to observe our thoughts without being carried away by them, to recognize them as mental events rather than absolute truths. Huineng stands up, walking toward the door where the breeze is strongest. He closes his eyes, taking a deep breath, and for a moment, he simply is no thoughts, no judgments, no interpretations, just presence with the wind, the banner, the moment. When he opens his eyes, he looks at the monks. "Practice this," he says. "When you are washing dishes, just wash dishes. When you are walking, just walk. When you are arguing about wind and banners, notice that you are arguing about wind and banners, and then return to your breath." This simple practice, returning to the breath whenever we notice our minds have wandered into thought, is the foundation of Zen meditation. The breath is an anchor to the present moment, a reminder of our essential connection to life itself. It is always available, always changing, always here. As the afternoon turns to evening, the monks disperse, some to their meditation practice, some to their chores, their earlier debate forgotten. You notice a change in their demeanor, more relaxed, more present, as if Huineng's words have planted a seed of awareness in their minds. Huineng remains in the hall, sitting quietly by the door, watching the banner move in the wind. You approach him, feeling a sense of gratitude for the wisdom he has shared. He looks up at you, his eyes warm and knowing. "You see now," he says, "that the world is as it is, neither good nor bad. It is your mind that creates the stories, the judgments, the suffering. To find peace, you need not change the world, only your relationship to it." You nod, feeling this truth resonate in your bones. How many times have you allowed your mind to move you into anger, into anxiety, into regret, based on stories that were not even true? How much peace have you lost because you confused your thoughts about reality with reality itself? Huineng smiles. This evening, as you rest, practice watching your mind as you would watch the banner in the wind. Notice when it moves, but do not be moved by it. Remember that you are the sky, not the clouds. As night falls and you prepare for rest, you carry this teaching with you. You find a comfortable position, allowing your body to relax into the support beneath you, and close your eyes. Take a deep breath in, feeling the air fill your lungs, and exhale slowly, releasing any tension in your body. Do this 3 times, each breath bringing you more fully into the present moment. Now, bring your attention to your thoughts. Notice them arising, like the wind blowing, like the banner moving. They may be thoughts about the past regrets, memories, what-ifs, or thoughts about the future worries, plans, what will be. They may be judgments, opinions, stories, or simply random fragments of mental activity. Whatever they are, observe them without judgment. Do not try to stop them. Do not try to hold on to them. Just watch them as you would watch leaves floating down a stream. When you notice that you have become caught up in a thought, when you have forgotten that you are the observer, not the thought itself, gently return your attention to your breath. Feel the sensation of air moving in and out of your body, the rise and fall of your chest or abdomen, the coolness of the air at your nostrils. This breath is your anchor, your pole in the wind. It is always here, always present, always a reminder of your essential nature as awareness. As you continue this practice, you may notice that your thoughts begin to slow down, like the wind dying down at sunset. You may feel a sense of spaciousness, of calm, as you realize that you are not your thoughts, that you are the awareness in which thoughts arise and fall. Remember Huineng's words, "It is not the wind that moves, nor the banner that moves. It is your mind that moves." When you can observe your mind without being moved by it, you discover a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, a peace that is inherent, unshakable, your birthright. Take a deep breath now, inhaling this truth, exhaling any remaining identification with your thoughts. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. As you drift towards sleep, carry with you the image of the banner moving in the wind and the stillness of the pole it hangs from. You are both the movement and the stillness, the thought and the art. Awareness, but your true nature is the stillness, the awareness, the peace that underlies all experience. The wind will blow, the banner will move, thoughts will arise, but you need not be moved by them. You can rest in the knowing that all things change, all things pass, and beneath it all, there is a deep, abiding peace that is always with you. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The moon has risen high in the sky, casting a silvery glow over the temple grounds as you make your way back toward the main hall. The air is cool and still, with just a hint of the jasmine scent that seems to linger from earlier in the day. As you walk, you hear a sound that resonates deep within your chest, the clear, melodious tone of a temple bell ringing out across the quiet night. Drawn toward the sound, you find yourself in a small courtyard adjacent to the main hall. At the center of the courtyard stands a large bronze bell, its surface polished by centuries of hands. Beside it, an elderly monk in a simple gray robe is preparing to ring it again. His movements are slow and deliberate, as if each gesture is part of a sacred ritual. He lifts the wooden striker, pausing for a moment with his eyes closed, as if gathering his thoughts or connecting with something deeper. Then, with a smooth, controlled motion, he brings it down against the bell. The sound reverberates through the courtyard, through your body, through the very air itself, a deep, resonant tone that seems to vibrate at the core of your being. You stand there, transfixed, as the sound fades slowly into the night. There is something profoundly calming about it, something that quiets the chatter of your mind and brings you into a state of heightened awareness. The monk looks over at you, smiling gently. You are drawn to the bell, he says, stating the obvious, but in a way that feels like an invitation rather than an observation. You nod, still feeling the vibrations in your chest. It's beautiful, peaceful. He nods in agreement. The bell has many lessons to teach, he says, if we are willing to listen. He gestures for you to join him beside the bell. As you approach, you notice the intricate carvings on its surface images of mountains, rivers, trees, and small figures engaged in various activities. Each bell is unique, the monk explains. The shape, the thickness of the metal, the carvings, all of these affect the sound it makes. But regardless of its unique qualities, every bell serves the same purpose: to wake us up. Wake us up? You ask, curious. To wake us up to the present moment, he clarifies. In our daily lives, we are often asleep, caught up in thoughts of the past or the future, disconnected from what is happening right here, right now. The bell's sound cuts through that fog, that dreamlike state, and brings us back to reality. This is a central teaching in Zen Buddhism, that the present moment is the only moment we ever truly have. And yet we spend most of our lives elsewhere. The past is gone. The future is not yet here. And yet our minds are constantly dwelling on one or the other, creating a sense of unease, of dissatisfaction, of never being fully present. The Buddha taught this when he spoke of the two arrows of suffering. The first arrow is the pain of life itself, the inevitable difficulties, losses, and disappointments that come with being human. The second arrow is the suffering we create for ourselves by dwelling on the past or worrying about the future, by resisting what is or clinging to what was or what might be. Modern psychology confirms that this preoccupation with the past and future is a major contributor to insomnia and other sleep disturbances. When we lie in bed at night, our minds often go into overdrive, replaying conversations, rehashing mistakes, planning tomorrow, worrying about what might go wrong. This activates our default mode network, keeping our brains in a state of arousal. That makes it difficult to fall asleep or stay asleep. The temple bell, with its clear, penetrating sound, is a powerful antidote to this mental chatter. It acts as an anchor to the present moment, pulling our attention away from thoughts of past and future and into the here and now. The monk lifts the striker again, preparing to ring the bell a second time. Listen closely, he says. Not just with your ears, but with your whole body. He strikes the bell, and this time you focus on the sensation of the sound rather than just the sound itself. You feel it in your chest, in your bones, in the soles of your feet as it travels through the ground. You notice how it begins loud and clear, then gradually fades, changing subtly as it does, first deep and resonant, then higher, thinner, until it finally dissolves into silence. Like life itself, the monk says, as if reading your thoughts. All things arise, reach a peak, and fade away. This is the nature of anicca impermanence. The bell's sound does not struggle to stay. It does not cling to its existence. It simply is, then it is not. In this way, it teaches us non-attachment. This is a profound lesson. Much of our suffering comes from our attachment to pleasant experiences, wanting them to last, wanting more of them, and our aversion to unpleasant experiences, wanting them to end, wanting them to go away. We resist the natural flow of life, which is constant change, and in doing so, we create tension, anxiety, and stress. When it comes to sleep, this resistance is particularly problematic. We lie in bed, wanting to fall asleep, becoming frustrated when we don't, which only makes it harder. We cling to the idea of a good night's sleep, and our aversion to insomnia creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. The bell sound teaches us to let go of this resistance. It shows us that all things have their own timing, their own natural rhythm. Just as we cannot force the bell to ring louder or longer, we cannot force ourselves to sleep. We can only create the conditions for sleep and then let it happen in its own time. The monk looks at you, his eyes warm and understanding. "You have trouble sleeping," he says, not as a question but a statement. You nod, surprised by his perceptiveness. "How did you know?" He smiles. "The same way I know the bell will ring when I strike it. The signs are there in the tension, in your shoulders, the slight furrow between your brows, the way your mind seems to race even when your body is still. Many come here with this same burden." He pauses, then continues. "Insomnia is often a symptom of a mind that cannot rest in the present. It is a mind that is either replaying the past or rehearsing the future, unable to simply be. The more we struggle against this, the more we fuel the cycle. This aligns with what modern sleep science tells us. Insomnia is often perpetuated by what psychologists call conditioned arousal, a learned response where the bed and bedtime become associated with wakefulness and frustration, rather than relaxation and sleep. Our efforts to force sleep actually create a state of hypervigilance, making it even harder to drift off. The solution, both the monk and sleep experts agree, is to cultivate a state of relaxed wakefulness rather than struggling against wakefulness. This involves letting go of the pressure to sleep, accepting that sometimes we will be awake, and finding a way to be present with that experience without resistance. The monk strikes the bell a third time, and this time he invites you to close your eyes. "Breathe with the sound," he says. "Inhale as you feel it rising. Exhale as you feel it fading. Let your breath and the bell's sound become one." You do as he says, closing your eyes and focusing on the sensation of the sound and your breath. Inhale as the bell rings out, filling your awareness. Exhale as the sound fades, releasing any tension, any expectation, any need for things to be different. For a moment, there is no past, no future, no insomnia, no worry, just the sound of the bell, your breath, and the present moment. It is a state of pure awareness, of being fully alive to what is, without judgment or resistance. This is the state we need to cultivate for sleep, not a state of forced relaxation, but a state of gentle awareness, of being present with whatever arises, whether that is sleepiness or wakefulness, without clinging or aversion. When the sound of the bell has completely faded, the monk speaks again, his voice soft, almost a whisper. "The bell rings 3 times each evening," he says. "The first ring is to let go of the day's activities, the second to let go of thoughts and worries, the third to return to the true nature of things, the present moment where peace resides." This threefold practice, letting go of the past, letting go of mental chatter, returning to the present is a powerful antidote to insomnia. It addresses the three main obstacles to sleep: our preoccupation with the day's events, our tendency to ruminate and worry, and our disconnection from the present moment. The monk invites you to sit with him on a small wooden bench beside the bell. The night is quiet now, except for the occasional hoot of an owl and the distant rustle of leaves in the breeze. "Tell me about your nights," he says. "What happens when you lie down to sleep?" You share with him the familiar pattern, the racing thoughts, the frustration when sleep doesn't come, the worry about being tired the next day. You describe how even when you are physically exhausted, your mind seems to find endless energy to dwell on every possible concern. He listens attentively, nodding occasionally. "Your mind is like a monkey that has been given a cup of strong tea," he says, smiling gently. "It cannot sit still, cannot be quiet, no matter how much you wish it to. But here is the secret. You do not need to calm the monkey. You just need to stop feeding it." "Feeding it?" you ask. "Feeding it with your attention," he explains. "Every time you engage with a thought, every time you analyze it, or resist it, or try to push it away, you are giving it energy, making it stronger. What if, instead, you simply observed the thought without engaging with it? What if you treated it like a cloud passing through the sky, noticed, but not followed? This is the essence of mindfulness practice for insomnia. Instead of trying to control our thoughts or force ourselves to sleep, we learn to observe our thoughts with a sense of curiosity and detachment, recognizing them as mental events rather than realities. Research has shown that mindfulness-based approaches are highly effective for treating insomnia. They help to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest system, reducing the physiological arousal that keeps us awake. They also help to break the cycle of conditioned arousal, reteaching our brains to associate bed with relaxation rather than frustration. The monk stands up, moving to a small table beside the bell where there is a candle and a match. He lights the candle, its flame flickering gently in the still air. "Watch the flame," he says. "When your mind wanders, and it will, just gently bring your attention back to the flame. Do this for a few moments and notice how you feel." You focus on the flame, its soft glow, its gentle movement. Almost immediately, your mind starts to wander to thoughts of tomorrow, to the conversation you had earlier, to the sound of the bell. But each time you notice, you gently return your attention to the flame, without judgment, without frustration. After a few minutes, the monk asks, "What did you notice?" "I noticed how often my mind wandered," you say. "And how hard it is to stay focused on just one thing." "Exactly," he says. "This is the nature of the mind. It is not a failure. It is just how it is." The practice is not to stop the wandering, but to become aware of it and return again and again. This is how we train the mind to stay present, even in the quiet of night. He blows out the candle, and for a moment, the only light is the moonlight filtering through the trees. "Tonight, when you lie down to sleep," he says, "I want you to try something. Instead of trying to fall asleep, try to simply be awake fully, completely awake to the present moment." He explains further, "Notice the sensation of your body against the bed, the weight of your legs, the feel of the sheets against your skin, the rise and fall of your chest as you breathe. When thoughts arise, notice them, then return to the sensations of your body. When you notice that you have been caught up in thinking, do not scold yourself. Just return to the present as you return to the flame. This approach is diametrically opposed to our usual strategy for dealing with insomnia, which is focused on making ourselves sleep. Instead, it invites us to let go of control, to accept whatever is happening in the moment, whether that is sleep or wakefulness, and to find a sense of peace within that acceptance. The monk strikes the bell once more, a soft, gentle sound that seems to wrap around you like a blanket. The bell does not care whether you are asleep or awake, he says. It just rings and fades and is silent. So too can you be no effort, no struggle, just being in each moment as it comes. As you prepare to leave, he gives you a small wooden chime, a miniature version of the large bell. When you wake in the night, he says, strike this gently and let its sound bring you back to the present moment. Remember that wakefulness is not a problem to be solved, but an opportunity to practice being present. You thank him, feeling a sense of hope that you haven't felt in a long time. For so long, sleep has felt like a battle, a struggle that you were losing. But now, there is a different approach, one of acceptance, of presence, of letting go. As you walk back to your resting place, the night feels different, somehow quieter, softer, more peaceful. You think about the bell, its clear sound cutting through the darkness, waking you up to the present moment. You think about the monk's words, and for the first time, you feel a sense of possibility that maybe, just maybe, sleep will come not through struggle, but through surrender. This evening, as you prepare for bed, you hold the small wooden chime in your hand, feeling its smooth surface, its weight. You set it beside your bed, a reminder of the wisdom you have received. Lie down in a comfortable position, allowing your body to be fully supported by the mattress and pillows. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, inhaling through your nose, feeling your lungs expand, exhaling through your mouth, releasing any tension. Now, instead of thinking about sleep, turn your attention to the sensations of being awake. Notice the coolness of the air on your face, the warmth of your body beneath the covers, the slight pressure of the mattress against your back. Bring your attention to your breath, not trying to change it, just noticing it, the natural rhythm. The sensation of air moving in and out of your nostrils, the rise and fall of your chest. When thoughts arise, and they will simply notice them. You might say silently yourself, thinking, then gently return your attention to your breath or to the sensations of your body. If you find yourself worrying about not sleeping, notice that worry, then return to the present moment. Remember, the monk's words, wakefulness is not a problem, but an opportunity to practice being present. If you wake in the night, reach for the chime. Strike it gently, and as you listen to its sound, let it carry your attention back to the present moment. Feel the vibrations in your hand. Listen as the sound rises and falls, fades into silence. Then return to your breath, to the sensations of your body, to simply being. Remember that the goal is not to force sleep, but to be present with whatever is happening, whether that is sleepiness or wakefulness. In this presence, in this acceptance, you may find that sleep comes naturally as a byproduct of being fully alive to the present moment. Take a deep breath in, feeling the life in your body, the miracle of being here, now. Exhale, releasing any need for things to be different. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. As you continue to breathe, allow yourself to rest in the present moment, the only moment that has ever existed, the only moment where peace can be found. The past is gone. The future is not yet here. All there is, all there ever is now. And in this now, you are enough. You are safe. You are at peace. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The first light of dawn is just beginning to seep over the horizon as you leave the Bell courtyard, the sound of the chimes still echoing faintly in your memory. The air is crisp and fresh, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and the sweet aroma of blooming magnolias. You find yourself drawn toward a small, secluded building at the far end of the temple grounds, a place you haven't noticed before. Its entrance marked by a wooden sign with a single character carved into it. Mirror. Pushing open the wooden door, you step into a room that feels both ancient and timeless. The walls are lined with wooden shelves holding various objects, stone statues, small bowls, scrolls of calligraphy, but what immediately catches your eye is the large mirror that dominates one wall. It is not a modern mirror, but an old bronze. One, its surface slightly oxidized, giving it a warm golden hue. Unlike the perfect, clear reflections of modern glass mirrors, this one shows a softer, more mercurial image, somewhat like looking into still water. Standing before the mirror is a middle-aged monk, his posture upright but relaxed, his gaze fixed on his reflection. He is not preening or inspecting himself, but looking with a kind of curious detachment, as if studying a stranger. You stand quietly in the doorway, not wanting to disturb him, but after a moment, he turns, as if sensing your presence. His face is calm, with eyes that seem to see beyond the surface of things. "Welcome," he says, his voice warm and inviting. "I am Sojun. This is the Hall of Reflection." You nod, stepping further into the room. "It's a beautiful mirror," you say. Sojun smiles. "It is old," he says. "Older than this temple, perhaps. It has seen many faces, many changes. But what is most interesting about it is not what it shows, but what it reveals." "What do you mean?" You ask. "Look into it," he says, gesturing toward the mirror. "What do you see?" You step forward, standing beside him, and look into the mirror. You see your reflection, of course, but as with all old bronze mirrors, it is not a perfect replica. The edges are slightly blurred, the colors muted. It shows you, but not quite you, a version filtered through time and metal. "I see myself," you say, stating the obvious. Sojun nods. "And what do you feel when you see yourself?" You pause, considering the question. It's a strange feeling, looking into such an old mirror. There's a sense of connection to the past, to all the others who have stood here, looking into this same mirror, seeing their own reflections. "I'm not sure," you say. It's familiar, but also a little unsettling. Like seeing a stranger who looks like me. "Interesting," Sojun says. "Most people either see only themselves without question or become uncomfortable and look away." You feel the tension between recognition and strangeness. That is a good starting point. He turns back to the mirror, looking at his own reflection. "Again, this mirror teaches us about the self," he says. "Not the physical self, the body, but the sense of I that we carry with us, the story we tell ourselves about who we are. This is a central concern in Zen Buddhism, the nature of the self. The Buddha taught that what we think of as the self is actually a collection of constantly changing phenomena. Our body, our feelings, our perceptions, our thoughts, and our consciousness. There is no fixed, unchanging I that exists independently of these phenomena. He called this anatta, non-self. This teaching is often misunderstood as saying that I do not exist, but that is not the case. It is not that we do not exist, but that our existence is not fixed or separate. We are more like a river than a rock, constantly changing, constantly in flux, connected to everything around us. The problem arises when we cling to a fixed idea of who we are. We create a story, a narrative of our lives, our identity, our worth, and we become attached to this story. We defend it, protect it, define ourselves by it. This attachment to the self-story is at the root of much of our fear and suffering. Modern psychology refers to this as the narrative self, the story we construct about ourselves to make sense of our experiences. This narrative is essential for functioning in the world. It helps us make decisions, navigate social relationships, and find meaning in our lives. But when we become too attached to it, when we mistake the story for the reality, it becomes a source of suffering. Zoon points to your reflection in the mirror. That image is not you, he says. It is a reflection, an appearance, a phenomenon. If the mirror were to break, would you cease to exist? Of course not. Yet we treat our sense of self as if it is as solid and real as this mirror, when, in fact, it is just as ephemeral as the reflection. This is a challenging idea. We all feel a strong sense of being a separate, continuous self. It is the most basic aspect of our experience. Yet both Buddhist philosophy and modern neuroscience suggest that this sense of self is a construction, a useful fiction created by the brain. Neuroscientists have identified a network of brain regions that are active when we think about ourselves. Medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, and the inferior parietal lobule, among others. This self-network is constantly integrating information from our senses, memories, and social interactions to create a coherent sense of who we are. But this sense is not fixed. It changes over time, and it can be disrupted by brain damage, meditation, or certain psychoactive substances. When our sense of self is threatened, when our self-story is challenged, we experience fear. This is because our brain interprets threats to our self-concept as threats to our survival. The amygdala, our brain's fear center, activates, triggering the fight or flight response. We feel anxious, defensive, sometimes even aggressive, as we struggle to protect our fragile sense of self. This explains why we feel fear in situations that challenge our identity. Public speaking, rejection in relationships, failure. All these fears are ultimately fears for the survival of our self-story. Zoon continues to look into the mirror, his expression calm and curious. I used to be afraid of this mirror, he says, surprising you. When I first came to this temple as a young monk, I would avoid this room. The reflection unsettled me. It made me question who I really was beneath the roles I played: monk, student, son, friend. He turns to look at you directly. What are you afraid of? He asks. When you look into this mirror, what fears arise? You think for a moment and answer honestly. I'm afraid of not being good enough, you say, of not living up to my own expectations or the expectations of others, of being seen as flawed or weak or unworthy. Zoon nods as if he expected this answer. These are the most common fears, he says. They all stem from the same source, our attachment to a particular image of ourselves. We have an idea of who we should be: successful, competent, loved, worthy, and we fear that the reality of who we are does not match this idea. He returns his gaze to the mirror. But what if there is no fixed you to be good enough or not? He asks, what if you are like this mirror's reflection, constantly changing, dependent on conditions, not fixed in any way? What if the self you are so busy protecting is just a story? This question hangs in the air, challenging everything you thought you knew about yourself. It is a deeply unsettling question, but also, in a strange way, a liberating one. If there is no fixed self, then there is no self to fail, no self to be rejected, no self to be judged. The Buddha taught that understanding anatta, non-self, is the key to overcoming fear. When we realize that the self we are so busy protecting is not real in the way we think it is, the fears that arise from protecting it lose their power. This does not mean we become indifferent or reckless. Rather, we act from a place of clarity and compassion, free from the constraints of our self-story. Sojun gestures to a small table in the corner of the room, where there is a basin of water and a towel. Come, he says. Let me show you something. He dips his hand into the basin, then touches the surface of the mirror with his wet fingers, creating a small, blurred spot. Now, what do you see? He asks. You look again. The blurred spot partially obscures your reflection, making it even less clear. A distorted version of me, you say. Exactly, he says. Our ideas about ourselves are like these fingers. They distort our perception of who we really are. We see ourselves through the lens of our fears, our desires, our past experiences, and we mistake this distorted view for reality. He wipes the mirror clean with the towel, restoring its surface. When we let go of these ideas, when we stop clinging to our self-story, we see more clearly. Not just more clearly who we are, but more clearly the interconnectedness of all things. This interconnectedness is a natural consequence of understanding non-self. If there is no fixed, separate self, then the boundaries between me and you, between self and other, become permeable. We begin to see that we are part of a larger whole, like waves in an ocean dot. This realization has profound implications for how we relate to others and to the world. When we no longer see ourselves as separate, fear of rejection, judgment, or failure loses its grip. We can act with greater courage and compassion because our actions are not motivated by a desire to protect a fragile self, but by a recognition of our shared humanity. Sojun sits down on a cushion on the floor, gesturing for you to join him. You sit across from him, the mirror still visible on the wall behind him. Let me tell you a story, he says. Many years ago, when I was a young monk, I was sent to study with a master who lived in a remote mountain temple. One day, he took me to a still pond and asked me to look at my reflection. What do? You see? He asked. I told him I saw myself. He then picked up a stone and threw it into the pond, shattering my reflection into 1,000 pieces. And now? He asked. Now I see nothing but ripples, I said. No, he replied. Now you see the truth. The reflection was never you. It was just water, reflecting light. The ripples are also just water, moving. You are like this water, sometimes still, sometimes moving, but never fixed, never separate from the whole. This story echoes in your mind, connecting with the teachings you have received in the temple. The self, like the reflection in the water, is a temporary phenomenon, dependent on conditions. It is not an illusion, but it is not fixed or separate. Zoon looks at you with a gentle smile. The mirror shows us our reflection, but it also shows us the emptiness of that reflection. It is both something and nothing appearing, but without inherent existence. In the same way, our sense of self appears, but has no fixed, independent existence. This is the Buddhist concept of sunyata, emptiness, not in the sense of nothingness, but in the sense of interdependence and lack of inherent existence. All phenomena, including the self, are empty of inherent existence because they are dependent on other phenomena. They arise, exist, can cease based on conditions. Like waves in the ocean, that understanding emptiness does not mean we deny the existence of things, but that we see them more clearly as they truly are, rather than as we imagine them to be. It is a way of seeing that transcends the dualities of existence and non-existence, self and other, fear and courage. As you sit with Zoon, in the hall of reflection, you feel a sense of lightness, as if a heavy burden has been lifted. The fears that have plagued you, fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough, seem less substantial, like shadows that disappear when light is shone on them. Zoon stands up, walking back to the mirror. He looks at his reflection again, but this time he winks at it, and you both laugh. See? He says, it's just a reflection. No need to take it so seriously. This lightness, this ability to not take ourselves so seriously, is a natural outcome of understanding non-self. When we realize that the self we are so busy protecting is not fixed or separate, we can approach life with a sense of humor and flexibility rather than fear and rigidity. Before you leave, Zoon gives you a small hand mirror, its surface slightly flawed, like the large mirror in the hall. Take this, he says. When you feel fear arising, fear of what others think, fear of not being good enough, look into it. Remember that what you see is just a reflection, a temporary appearance. It is not who you are, any more than the moon's reflection is the moon itself. You thank him, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for his teachings. As you walk out of the hall of reflection, the morning sun is now fully risen, casting golden light across the temple grounds. You feel different, somehow lighter, more open, less burdened by the weight of your own self-story. This evening, as you prepare for rest, you hold the small mirror in your hand, feeling its weight, its imperfections. You place it beside your bed, next to the wooden chime from the bell courtyard. Lie down in a comfortable position, allowing your body to relax into the support beneath you. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, inhaling peace, exhaling. Tension. Bring to mind a fear that has been troubling you, a fear related to your sense of self, such as fear of rejection, failure, or judgment. Notice how this fear feels in your body, perhaps a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach, a tension in your shoulders. Now, imagine looking into Zoon's bronze mirror and seeing your reflection. Notice how the reflection is not perfect, not fixed, but a temporary changing image. As you look at this reflection, say silently to yourself, this is just a reflection. It is not who I am. I am more than this image, more than this story. With each breath, allow yourself to feel the truth of these words. Feel the boundaries of your self-story softening, expanding, connecting with something larger, with the room around you, with the night sky outside, with all living beings. Notice how your fear begins to shift as you loosen your attachment to your self-story. It may not disappear completely, but it loses its urgency, its power over you. You realize that even if your self-story is challenged, even if you fail or are rejected or judged, it does not change the fundamental truth of who you are, a changing, interconnected part of the whole. If fear arises again during the night, pick up the small mirror, look into it, and remember Sojin's teachings. The reflection is not you. The fear is just a thought, a feeling, a temporary phenomenon. Like a ripple on the surface of water. Take a deep breath in, feeling your connection to all things, your lack of separation. Exhale, releasing any remaining attachment to your self-story. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. As you continue to breathe, allow yourself to rest in the awareness of your true nature, not fixed, not separate, but vast, open, interconnected. In this awareness, there is no fear, because there is no separate self to be harmed. There is only this moment, this breath, this life, unfolding exactly as it is. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The morning sun has climbed high enough to dapple the temple paths with light and shadow as you leave the hall of reflection. The small hand mirror Sojun gave you rests comfortably in your pocket, a tangible reminder of his teachings about the fluid nature of self. You find yourself drawn to a sound you haven't noticed before, the gentle rustling of bamboo leaves, their slender stalks swaying in the breeze. Following the sound, you come to a quiet courtyard surrounded by a stand of bamboo. The bamboo grows tall here, their green stalks reaching toward the sky, their leaves creating a canopy that filters the sunlight into a mosaic of light and dark on the stone steps below. As the wind blows, the bamboo sways, and their shadows dance across the steps, moving back and forth in a graceful, unhurried rhythm. Sitting on a stone bench at the edge of the courtyard is an elderly nun, her white hair tied in a simple knot, her hands folded in her lap. She is watching the bamboo shadows with a look of quiet contentment, as if she has been doing this for many years. There is a stillness about her, a sense of being fully present in the moment that radiates peace. You approach her slowly, not wanting to disturb her contemplation. She turns her head toward you, her eyes crinkling at the corners with a warm smile. "Ah, you found the bamboo courtyard," she says, her voice soft like the rustle of the leaves above. "It's one of the quietest places in the temple, and one of the most instructive." You nod, taking a seat beside her on the bench. "The bamboo is beautiful," you say. "And the shadows, they're like a dance." She chuckles softly. "Yes, a dance without a dancer," she says. "The bamboo moves because the wind moves it. The shadows move because the bamboo moves. No one is in control. No one is directing the dance. It just happens, moment by moment, without plan or purpose." This observation seems simple, but there is depth to it, a depth that resonates with the teachings you've been receiving. It calls to mind the Buddhist concept of dependent origination, the idea that all phenomena arise in dependence upon other phenomena, without any independent, fixed existence. The bamboo's movement depends on the wind. The shadows depend on the bamboo, the sun, and the steps. Nothing exists in isolation. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is under the control of a separate self. The nun gestures to the steps, where the bamboo shadows are still moving back and forth. Look closely at the steps, she says. What do you see? You lean forward, studying the stone steps. They are old, worn smooth by time, and the feet of countless monks and visitors. But what strikes you is that despite the constant movement of the bamboo shadows across them, the steps themselves remain unchanged. There is no trace of the shadows once they move on. No mark, no impression, no sign that they were ever there. The steps do not hold on to the shadows, the nun says, as if finishing your thought. They do not cling to the light or resist the dark. They simply are, allowing the shadows to pass over them without being affected. This is a powerful metaphor for the mind. Like the steps, our minds are constantly being visited by thoughts, feelings, and sensations like shadows, passing across a surface. The problem arises when we cling to these mental phenomena, when we hold on to pleasant thoughts or resist unpleasant ones, when we allow ourselves to be defined or disturbed by what is essentially transient. The Buddha taught that this clinging, this updana, is the root of suffering. We grasp at pleasure, trying to make it last, and we push away pain, trying to make it disappear. But like the bamboo shadows, these experiences are impermanent. They arise, they change, they pass away. Our attempts to control them only create tension, frustration, and suffering. Modern psychology refers to this as experiential avoidance, the tendency to avoid or control unpleasant thoughts, feelings, or sensations. Research has shown that experiential avoidance is associated with a wide range of psychological problems, including anxiety, depression, and addiction. The more we try to control our inner experiences, the more power they have over us, and the more we suffer. The nun watches as a particularly strong gust of wind causes the bamboo to sway more vigorously, the shadows stretching and distorting across the steps. The wind is stronger now, she says, but the steps remain the same. They do not complain about the wind or wish for it to be gentle. They accept what is without resistance. This acceptance is not passive resignation, but active presence, being fully engaged with the present moment without trying to change it. It is the psychological flexibility we discussed earlier, the ability to adapt to what is rather than struggling against it. Research has shown that this kind of acceptance is associated with greater psychological well-being, better coping with stress, and improved relationships. When we stop trying to control our inner experiences and learn to accept them as transient, like shadows, they lose their power to disturb us. The nun turns to you, her eyes wise with years of observation. Your mind is like these steps, she says. Thoughts, feelings, memories, worries, they pass through it like shadows through the bamboo. They come, they go, they change shape, but they are not the steps themselves. They do not define the steps, and they leave no permanent mark. This is a crucial insight. Our thoughts and feelings are not who we are. They are just mental events, passing through our awareness like shadows across stone. We are more like the steps than the shadows, the stable, unchanging awareness that allows thoughts to arise and fall without being affected. But we often confuse the shadows with the steps, the thoughts with the mind. We say, I am angry, or I am sad, or I am worried, as if these transient states define us. We cling to them, identify with them, and allow them to shape our experience of the world. The nun points to a particularly long bamboo stalk that is swaying more than the others, its shadow stretching all the way across the courtyard. That stalk is like a strong emotion, a grief, an anger, a fear, she says. It casts a long shadow, seems very real, very powerful. But even so, the step does not mistake the shadow for itself. It remains what it is, untouched. This is the practice of mindfulness, to observe our thoughts and feelings without identifying with them, without being swept away by them. It is to recognize that we are the awareness in which thoughts arise, not the thoughts themselves. Like the steps, we can allow mental phenomena to pass through us without being affected. The nun stands up, stretching her arms gently toward the bamboo. "Let me show you something," she says. She walks to one of the bamboo stalks, placing her hand gently on it. As she does, the stalk stops swaying for a moment, but as soon as she removes her hand, it resumes its movement, as if nothing had happened. Trying to stop the bamboo from moving is like trying to stop your thoughts from arising, she says. It's impossible, and even if you succeed for a moment, it only creates tension. The bamboo is meant to move. That's its nature. In the same way, thoughts are meant to arise. That's the nature of the mind. This is an important correction to a common misunderstanding about mindfulness. Mindfulness is not about emptying the mind of thoughts any more than the steps are about preventing shadows. It's about changing our relationship to thoughts from one of control and identification to one of observation and acceptance. The nun walks back to the bench, sitting down with a sigh of contentment. "When I first came to this temple," she says, "I spent years trying to calm my mind, to make it stop thinking. I thought that enlightenment, a mind without thoughts. But the more I tried to stop my thoughts, the more they multiplied, like bamboo shoots after rain." She smiles, remembering. "And one day, my teacher brought me to this courtyard and said, 'Look at the steps, not the shadows.' It was like a bell ringing in my mind. I realized that the problem wasn't my thoughts, it was my relationship to them. I was trying to fight the shadows instead of resting in the steps." This shift in perspective from trying to control thoughts to accepting them is the heart of mindfulness practice. It is a shift from struggle to peace, from resistance to acceptance, from identifying with the transient to resting in the permanent. Neuroscientific research supports this shift. Studies have shown that mindfulness practice increases activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain associated with awareness and self-regulation, and decreases activity in the amygdala, which is associated with emotional reactivity. This helps us to observe our thoughts and feelings without being overwhelmed by them, to be like the steps rather than the shadows dot. As the morning progresses, the sun rises higher in the sky, and the bamboo shadows grow shorter, moving closer. To the base of the stalks, the nun points this out. "See how the shadows change?" she says. "As the sun moves, the shadows move with it. Nothing stays the same, not even the shadows. This is the nature of anicca impermanence. Everything changes, everything passes. This impermanence is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. It means that even the most painful thoughts and feelings will pass, like the longest shadow at sunset. Nothing is permanent, including our suffering." The nun reaches into her sleeve and pulls out a small bamboo whisk, the kind used to make matcha tea. She hands it to you. "Take this," she says. "It's made from bamboo, like the stalks above us. When you feel yourself clinging to a thought or feeling, when you find yourself identifying with the shadows, hold this whisk and remember the steps. Remember that thoughts are just thoughts, feelings are just feelings. and they will pass like shadows in the wind. You take the whisk, feeling its smooth surface, its light weight. It is simple, unadorned, but in that simplicity, there is beauty and wisdom. Thank you, you say, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for her teachings. This courtyard, it's taught me more than I could have imagined. She smiles. The bamboo has much to teach, she says. It is flexible yet strong. It bends with the wind but does not break. It grows tall but remains rooted in the earth. And its shadows remind us that even the most transient things can be beautiful. As you leave the bamboo courtyard, you carry the bamboo whisk in your hand, feeling its connection to the stalk swaying above you. You think about the steps and how they allow the shadows to pass over them without resistance. You think about your mind and how you can learn to do the same with your thoughts. This evening, as you prepare for rest, you place the bamboo whisk beside your bed next to the small mirror and the wooden chime. Together, they represent the wisdom you've gained, a bell to bring you back to the present, the mirror to remind you of the fluid nature of self, and the whisk to teach you acceptance of whatever arises. Lie down in a comfortable position, allowing your body to relax into the support beneath you. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, inhaling peace, exhaling tension. Bring your attention to your mind and notice whatever thoughts or feelings are present. They might be thoughts about the day past or the day to come, feelings of happiness or sadness, calm or restlessness. It doesn't matter what they are, just notice them. Like observing shadows moving across steps. As you observe these mental phenomena, remind yourself, these are just thoughts, just feelings. They are not who I am. They are like shadows passing across the steps of my mind. With each breath, imagine your mind as the stone step, stable, unchanging, allowing thoughts to pass through without being affected. Feel the sense of spaciousness this creates, the sense of peace that comes from not clinging or resisting. If you find yourself getting caught up in a thought, if you find yourself identifying with the shadow, gently return to the image of the bamboo courtyard. Remember the steps and how they remain unchanged by the shadows. Remember the nun's words. Look at the steps, not the shadows. Take a deep breath in, feeling the stability of your awareness, the unchanging nature of who you truly are. Exhale, releasing any attachment to the thoughts and feelings that pass through your mind. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. As you continue to breathe, allow yourself to rest in the awareness that is deeper than thought, the awareness that is like the stone steps, stable and unchanging amid the constant movement of mental shadows. In this awareness, there is peace, because there is no clinging, no resistance, no identification with the transient. There is only this moment, this breath, this life, unfolding exactly as it is, like bamboo in the wind, like shadows on stone. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The afternoon sun filters through the trees as you leave the bamboo courtyard, the bamboo whisk tucked safely in your pocket. The sound of rustling leaves draws you to a path lined with ancient maple trees, their branches heavy with leaves that are just beginning to turn golden at the edges, a sign that autumn is approaching. The path winds gently downhill, and as you walk, you notice that the ground is carpeted with fallen leaves, creating a soft, crackling bed beneath your feet. Reds, oranges, yellows, and greens mixed together in a vibrant tapestry, each leaf unique in its shape and color, yet part of a larger patterned dot at the bottom of the hill. You come to a small clearing where an old gardener is working. He is raking the leaves into neat piles, but instead of bagging them or burning them, he is spreading them around the base of the trees, covering the soil like a thick blanket. His movements are slow and deliberate, as if each leaf matters, as if this simple task is a form of meditation. You stand watching him for a moment, struck by the care he takes with what others might see as waste. He looks up, noticing you, and smiles a warm, weathered smile that reaches his eyes. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he says, gesturing to the carpet of leaves. Some people see them as a mess, something to be cleaned up and thrown away. But they're not waste, they're part of the cycle. You nod, stepping closer. "You're putting them back around the trees," you observe. "Of course," he says. "They grew from the earth, took nourishment from the tree, and now they return to the earth to nourish the tree again. It's the way of things Lu Wei Gugan fallen leaves return to the roots." This phrase Lao Wei Gugan resonates deeply, calling to mind the Buddhist concept of Tath Ta Sakness, or the way things truly are. It is the recognition that all phenomena are part of a natural cycle, interconnected and interdependent, unfolding according to their own nature. Without need for external control or intervention, the gardener pauses, leaning on his rake, and looks up at the maple trees. "These trees don't struggle against the changing seasons," he says. "They don't cling to their leaves, begging them not to fall. They let go, trusting that what falls away will nourish what comes next. This is wisdom knowing when to let go, trusting in the natural cycle of life. This wisdom stands in contrast to our human tendency to resist change, to cling to what is familiar, to fear the inevitable transitions of life. We struggle against aging, against loss, against the passing of time, as if we could somehow avoid the natural cycle that governs all living things. The Buddha taught that this resistance to change is one of the primary sources of suffering. He described life as a river constantly flowing, constantly changing and suffering, as trying to swim against the current. The path to peace, he said, is to learn to flow with the river, to accept the natural rhythm of change. Modern psychology refers to this as acceptance of reality, the ability to acknowledge and come to terms with the way things are, even when we don't like them. Research has shown that this kind of acceptance is associated with greater psychological well-being, less stress, and better coping with loss and change. When we stop fighting against reality, we free up energy that was spent on resistance and can channel it into living fully in the present moment. The gardener bends down, picking up a single golden leaf and holding it up to the light. "Look at this leaf," he says. "It was green once, full of life, capturing sunlight and turning it into food for the tree. Now it's dying, changing color, falling to the ground. But in its dying, it serves a purpose. It nourishes the soil, providing nutrients for the tree to grow new leaves next spring." He drops the leaf back onto the pile. "Nothing is lost," he says. "Everything is transformed. This is the law of nature, and we ignore it at our own peril." This idea of transformation, rather than loss, is central to Buddhist philosophy. The Buddha taught that birth and death are not opposites, but part of a continuous cycle of rebirth samsara, in which consciousness is constantly changing. Form, like water changing from ice to liquid to steam. Even in death, there is no true loss, only transformation. While modern science does not support the idea of literal rebirth, it does confirm the gardener's observation that nothing is truly lost. The atoms that make up our bodies, the energy that animates us, have been part of countless forms throughout the history of the universe and will continue to be part of new forms long after our bodies have decomposed. We are part of a vast, interconnected web of energy and matter, constantly changing, constantly transforming. The gardener continues to spread the leaves around the base of a large maple tree, his hands moving gently, as if tucking the tree in for the winter. I used to fight against the seasons, he says, surprising you with his candor. I'd tried to make the flowers bloom longer, to keep the leaves from falling, to protect the trees from the cold. But I learned that my efforts were futile and harmful. The trees need the winter to rest, just as they need the autumn to let go of what no longer serves them. This is a common pattern in human behavior. We try to control natural processes, to impose our will on the world, without recognizing that some things are beyond our control. We think we know better than nature, better than the natural rhythm of life, and in doing so, we create unnecessary suffering for ourselves and others. Gardener looks at you, his eyes wise with years of observing the natural world. You humans spend so much energy resisting what is, he says. You cling to youth, to health, to relationships, to possessions, as if they could last forever. But they can't. Nothing can. The only constant is change. He pauses then, adds, but change is not the enemy. It is the source of life. Without change, there would be no growth, no renewal, no possibility of new life. The leaves must fall so that new leaves can grow. The river must flow so that it does not become stagnant. This perspective transforms our relationship to change. Instead of seeing it as a threat to be resisted, we can see it as a natural, necessary part of life, a source of growth and renewal. This shift in perspective is not just philosophical. It has practical implications for our mental health, and well-being research has shown that people who are able to accept change and see it as an opportunity for growth are more resilient in the face of adversity, less prone to depression and anxiety, and more satisfied with their lives. They are like the maple trees, bending with the wind rather than breaking, letting go of what no longer serves them, trusting in the natural cycle of life. The gardener finishes spreading the leaves around the tree and stands up, brushing off his hands. There, he says, looking satisfied. These leaves will decompose over the winter, becoming part of the soil. Next spring, when the tree puts out new leaves, they will be nourished by these very leaves that are falling now. It's a beautiful circle, isn't it? It is beautiful, a reminder that life is not a linear journey from birth to death, but a circular process of growth, decay, and renewal. We are all part of this circle, connected to the past and the future in ways we can never fully understand. As you watch, a gentle breeze blows through the clearing, sending a shower of leaves falling from the trees. They spiral down slowly, like dancers, settling softly on the ground. It is a moment of quiet beauty, a reminder of the grace that comes from letting go. The gardener smiles, watching the leaves fall. They don't struggle, he says. They don't fight against gravity. They just let go and trust that they will land where they need to be. This is the essence of Lu Wei Gogin, not just fallen leaves returning to the roots, but a way of being in the world, trusting in the natural order, letting go of control, accepting the cycle of growth and decay. It is a wisdom that comes from observing nature, from recognizing that we are part of something larger than ourselves, something that has been unfolding long before we arrived and will continue long after we are gone. Before you leave, the gardener gives you a small clay pot filled with soil and a single maple seed. Plant this, he says, and watch it grow. Remember that all growth comes from decay, that all life comes from the earth and returns to it. Remember Lu Wei Gugen. You take the pot, feeling its weight in your hands, the promise of new life contained within it. Thank you. You say, I will remember. He nods, returning to his work. The earth teaches us what we need to know, he says. We just need to stop talking and listen. As you walk back up the path, the leaves crunching beneath your feet, you think about the gardener's words. You think about the ways you resist change, cling to what is familiar, fear the unknown. You think about the wisdom of the maple trees, letting go of their leaves without regret, trusting in the cycle of life. This evening, as you prepare for rest, you place the clay pot on your windowsill, where it catches the last light of the setting sun. The small seed inside represents both an ending and a beginning, a reminder that all things must pass, and that from endings come new beginnings. Lie down in a comfortable position, allowing your body to relax into the support beneath you. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, inhaling peace. Exhaling tension. Bring to mind something in your life that is changing or has changed. A relationship, a job, a stage of life, a belief. It might be something you welcome, or something you resist, or something that simply is . As you hold this change in your awareness, notice any feelings that arise: fear, sadness, excitement, resistance. These feelings are natural. Change can be difficult, even when it is welcomed. Now, imagine this change as a falling leaf. See it detaching from the branch, spiraling down toward the earth. Notice if you feel an urge to catch it, to hold it back, to prevent it from falling. This is your resistance. You're clinging to what was or what you thought should be. With each breath, allow yourself to soften this resistance. Imagine letting go of the leaf, allowing it to fall freely, trusting that it will land where it needs to be. Feel the sense of release this brings, the lightness that comes from no longer struggling. Remember the gardener's words: nothing is lost. Everything is transformed. Whatever is changing in your life is not being destroyed. It is being transformed. What is falling away is making space for something new to grow. Imagine the leaf landing on the earth, joining the other fallen leaves, beginning to decompose, to become part of the soil. See the nutrients it releases, nourishing the tree, preparing the way for new growth in the spring. In the same way, imagine the change in your life as a source of nourishment, a preparation for new growth. It may not be easy, it may not be what you wanted, but it is part of your own natural cycle, part of your own Lu Wei Gugen. Take a deep breath in, feeling yourself connected to this natural cycle, to the wisdom of the earth that knows how to let go and how to grow. Exhale, releasing any remaining resistance, any clinging to what was. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. As you continue to breathe, allow yourself to rest in the knowledge that you are part of something larger than yourself, a vast, beautiful cycle of growth, decay, and renewal. You do not need to control this cycle, or understand it, or resist it. You just need to trust it, to flow with it, to let go and let be. Like the fallen leaves returning to the roots, you are exactly where you need to be, part of a process that is wise and perfect in its imperfection. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. The evening is drawing in, painting the sky in soft hues of lavender and pink as you leave the maple grove. A small clay pot with its maple seed clutched gently in your hand. The air has grown cooler, carrying with it the crisp scent of approaching night, and you find yourself drawn toward a sound you haven't heard since your first morning at the temple, the gentle lapping of water against stone. Following the sound, you retrace your steps back toward the center of the temple grounds, where you first encountered the blind men and their argument about the moon. The pond they were standing beside lies ahead, its surface now perfectly still, like a sheet of black glass reflecting the darkening sky dot as you approach. You notice a figure sitting on the stone bench beside the pond, a woman dressed in simple white robes, her posture straight yet relaxed, her gaze fixed on the water. There is a quiet intensity about her, as if she is seeing something beyond the surface of the pond, something that lies beneath or beyond. You pause, not wanting to disturb her, but she turns her head toward you, her eyes clear and bright in the fading light. "Welcome back," she says, her voice calm and melodious, like the sound of the water beside you. The pond is particularly still this evening. It is a good time to see clearly. You take a seat beside her on the bench, setting the clay pot down beside you. "It's beautiful," you say, looking out at the pond. "So calm, so peaceful." "It is calm now," she says, "but earlier today, the wind was blowing and its surface was choppy, disturbed. It did not reflect the sky then, or if it did, the reflection was broken, distorted." She turns to look at you, her eyes wise and penetrating. "Like the mind," she adds. "When it is disturbed by thoughts and emotions, it cannot reflect reality clearly. But when it is still, when it is calm, we see things as they truly are." This observation calls to mind the Buddhist concept of chitta mind or consciousness, which is often compared to a pond. When the pond is disturbed, the reflection is distorted. When it is still, the reflection is clear and accurate. The goal of Buddhist practice is to still the mind so that it can reflect reality without distortion, to see things through the lens of Prajit rather than Avidib. The woman gestures to the pond, where the first stars are beginning to appear. In the reflection, "Do you see the stars in the water?" she asks. "They look real, don't they? They seem to have substance, to exist in the water. But if you reach out to touch them, your hand goes right through. They are not real stars, just reflections." This is a powerful metaphor for the nature of reality as understood in Buddhism. The Buddha taught that the world we perceive through our senses is like the reflection in the pond apparent, but not ultimately real. It is a product of our minds, our senses, our conditioning, and while it has a conventional reality, it is not the ultimate truth. Modern neuroscience supports this understanding, showing that our perception of reality is a construction of the brain, built from sensory input, memory, and expectation. What we experience as reality is not a direct reflection of the world, but a simulation created by our neural networks, a reflection, not the thing itself. The woman continues to look at the pond, where the moon is now rising, its reflection, spreading across the water like a silver path. The moon in the sky and the moon in the water, they look the same, but they are not, she says. One is the source, the other is a reflection. Yet people often mistake the reflection for the real thing. They chase after the reflection, trying to grasp it, to possess it, not realizing that it is just an appearance. This is the Buddhist teaching on by-illusion or appearance. It is not that the world is completely unreal, but that we mistake appearances for reality, and in doing so, we create suffering for ourselves. We chase after pleasure, success, recognition, all of which are like the moon in the pond, beautiful, apparent, but ultimately impermanent and insubstantial. The woman turns to you, her expression gentle but serious. What do you chase after? She asks. What reflections in the pond of your mind do you mistake for reality? You think for a moment, and the answer comes quickly. Approval from others, success in your work, a sense of security, even happiness itself. These things are not inherently bad, but when you mistake them for ultimate sources of fulfillment, when you cling to them as if they can provide lasting happiness, they become sources of suffering. The Buddha taught that all conditioned phenomena, all things that arise from causes and conditions, which includes almost everything we experience, are characterized by dukkha. This is not because they are inherently bad, but because they are impermanent and insubstantial. They cannot provide the lasting happiness we seek, no matter how much we cling to them. The woman nods, as if she can see your thoughts. It is not wrong to enjoy the reflection, she says. The moon in the water is beautiful, but to mistake it for the real thing, to suffer when the wind comes and distorts it, when the sun rises and it disappears, that is the cause of suffering. She leans forward, dipping her hand into the pond and creating ripples that distort the moon's reflection. See, she says, the reflection is easily disturbed. It depends on conditions, the stillness of the water, the angle of the light, the absence of wind. So too the things we chase after depend on conditions beyond our control. They are easily disturbed, easily lost. This is the nature of all conditioned phenomena, dependent on conditions, impermanent, subject to change. When we ignore this nature, when we treat impermanent things as if they are permanent, when we treat insubstantial things as if they are substantial, we set ourselves up for suffering. Modern psychology refers to this as the hedonic treadmill, the tendency to quickly adapt to positive experiences, leading us to constantly seek out new sources of pleasure, never feeling satisfied. Research has shown that this pattern is associated with lower levels of well-being as we become trapped in a cycle of chasing after the next reflection without ever finding lasting fulfillment. The woman withdraws her hand from the water, and gradually the ripples subside, the moon's reflection becoming clear again. The mind is like this pond, she says. It naturally returns to stillness when we stop disturbing it. When we stop grasping, stop chasing, stop resisting, the mind settles and we see things as they are. This stillness is not something we need to create through effort, but something that is always present beneath the surface of our thoughts and emotions. It is our natural state, our Buddha nature, the pure, unconditioned awareness that is capable of reflecting reality clearly. The practice of meditation is not about creating this stillness, but about recognizing it, about learning to rest in it despite the constant movement of thoughts and emotions. It is like sitting by the pond and watching the ripples without being disturbed by them, knowing that the stillness is always there. Beneath the surface, the woman stands up, walking to the edge of the pond and looking up at the moon in the sky. The real moon is always there, she says, whether it is reflected in the pond or not. It does not depend on the pond for its existence. In the same way, your true nature, the awareness that is capable of seeing the reflections in your mind, is always there, whether your mind is disturbed or still. It does not depend on your thoughts or emotions for its existence. This true nature is what Zen practitioners refer to as no mind, huaxin, not the absence of mind, but a mind that is not caught up in thoughts and emotions, a mind that is clear and free, like the sky above the pond. It is the awareness that knows the difference between the reflection and the real thing, between appearance and reality. As the moon rises higher in the sky, its reflection in the pond grows brighter, more vivid. The woman turns to you, holding out her hand. In her palm is a small, smooth stone. "Take this," she says. "It is from the bottom of this pond. It has been underwater for many years, untouched by the wind and the waves. It is a reminder of what lies beneath the surface, the stillness, the solidity, the reality beneath, the reflection." You take the stone, feeling its cool, smooth surface in your hand. It is heavier than it looks, solid and substantial, a contrast to the ephemeral reflection of the moon in the water. "Thank you," you say. "I think I understand a little." She smiles. Understanding is like the moon's reflection. It comes and goes, but the moon itself, your true nature, is always there. Rest in that, and you will never be lost. As you walk back to your resting place, the stone in one hand and the clay pot in the other, you think about the woman's words. You think about the reflections you chase after in your own life, the things you mistake for reality. You think about the stillness beneath the surface of your mind, the awareness that is always present, always clear when you stop disturbing it. This evening, as you prepare for rest, you place the stone beside your bed, next to the bamboo whisk, the small mirror, the wooden chime, and the clay pot with its maple seed. Together, they represent the journey you have taken, the bell to bring you back to the present, the mirror to show you the fluid nature of self, the whisk to teach you acceptance, the seed to remind you of the cycle of change, and the stone to ground you in the reality beneath the reflections. Lie down in a comfortable position, allowing your body to relax into the support beneath you. Close your eyes and take 3 deep breaths, inhaling peace, exhaling tension. Bring your attention to your mind and notice the thoughts and emotions that arise, like reflections on the surface of a pond. They may be thoughts of the past or future, feelings of joy or sadness, hope or fear. Whatever they are, see them as reflections, not the reality, but appearances. Imagine yourself sitting beside a still pond, watching these reflections without being disturbed by them. Notice that the pond itself, the awareness that is watching the reflections, is calm, still, unchanging. As you continue to breathe, imagine diving beneath the surface of the pond, leaving the reflections behind. Feel yourself descending into the still, cool water, down to the bottom where the stone lies. Rest there, in the quiet, the darkness, the solidity of the pond's depths. This is your true nature, the awareness that is beyond thoughts and emotions, beyond reflections and appearances. It is the reality beneath the surface, the stillness beneath the movement, the moon in the sky beyond the reflection in the water. When thoughts or emotions arise, when the surface of the pond is disturbed, simply notice them as reflections and return to the stillness beneath. Remember that the reflections are not you, not reality, just appearances that come and go. Take a deep breath in, feeling yourself rooted in this stillness, this reality. Exhale, releasing any identification with the reflections, any attachment. To appearances, peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. Breathe in, breathe out, as you continue to breathe. Allow yourself to rest in the knowledge that you are more than the reflections in your mind. You are the pond, the sky, the moon itself, the source, not the reflection. You are the awareness that knows, the stillness that sees, the reality that underlies all appearances. In this knowing, there is peace deep, abiding, unshakable. Breathe in, breathe out. Peace comes from within. Do not seek it without. As we pass through bamboo shadows, water sounds, bell rings, and tea fragrance, 10 stories have sown seeds of peace in your heart. May these truths accompany your every breath and continue to nourish your soul in dreams. Thank you for sharing this journey from Zen Mind Temple. Good night.